Marigold stood in the doorway for a long time, the cold night air biting at her cheeks as she clutched the little iron pot. The old woman's words echoed in her mind. Use it wisely, and it will bring you joy. Use it carelessly, and it will bring you sorrow. She knew the pot was a gift, but it was also a responsibility, one she had failed once before. Now, with her mother growing weaker by the day and the villagers still angry, she had to decide whether to trust herself with its magic again. Taking a deep breath, Marigold closed the door and returned to the small kitchen. The fire in the hearth had dwindled to embers, casting a faint orange glow over the room. She set the pot on the table and stared at it, her heart pounding. Could she really do this? Could she use the pot without causing more harm? Her mother's faint cough from the other room reminded her why she had no choice. She had to try. Little pot, Marigold whispered, her voice trembling. Cook me some porridge. The pot began to hum softly, just as it had before, and within moments it was filled to the brim with warm, sweet-smelling porridge. Marigold ladled a bowlful for her mother and carried it to her bedside. The widow's eyes fluttered open, and she smiled weakly at the sight of the steaming food. Marigold, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, where did you get this? It's from the pot, Marigold admitted. I used it again, but this time I'll be careful. I promise. Her mother reached out and took her hand. You have a good heart, my dear. Just remember that even the best intentions can lead to trouble if we're not mindful. Marigold nodded, tears welling in her eyes. She helped her mother sit up and eat, then returned to the kitchen to clean the pot. This time, she made sure to say the words to stop it as soon as they had enough. She would not let her carelessness hurt anyone again. The days turned into weeks, and Marigold used the pot sparingly, always careful to stop it before it overflowed. She and her mother had enough to eat, but the villagers remained cold and distant. Marigold longed to share the pot's bounty with them again, to make amends for the mess she had caused, but she was afraid. What if she made another mistake? What if the pot's magic spiraled out of control once more? One afternoon, as Marigold was gathering firewood near the edge of the forest, she heard a faint cry. She froze, listening intently, and heard it again, a child's voice calling for help. Dropping her bundle of sticks, she ran toward the sound, her heart racing. She found a little boy, no older than 6, trapped in a shallow pit. His face was streaked with tears, and his hands were scratched from trying to climb out. Marigold knelt at the edge of the pit and reached down to him. "It's all right," she said gently. "I'll help you." She managed to pull the boy out, and he clung to her, trembling. "Thank you," he whispered. "I was so scared." Marigold recognized him as one of the village children, though she didn't know his name. His clothes were thin and patched, and his cheeks were hollow. She realized with a pang that he was hungry, just as she had been before the old woman gave her the pot. "Come with me," she said, taking his hand. "I'll get you something to eat." She led him back to the cottage, where her mother was resting by the fire. The widow smiled when she saw the boy and insisted he sit by the hearth to warm up. Marigold fetched the pot and whispered the words to make porridge. When it was ready, she filled a bowl for the boy and watched as he ate eagerly. "This is the best porridge I've ever had," he said between bites. "Thank you." Marigold felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the fire. For the first time since the porridge flood, she felt hopeful. Maybe she could use the pot to help others after all, if she was careful. The next day, Marigold went to the village square, where a few villagers were gathered. They eyed her warily as she approached, but she held her head high. "I know I made a mistake," she said, her voice steady. "And I'm sorry for the trouble I caused, but I want to make it right. If you'll let me, I'd like to share the pot's magic with you again. I promise I'll be more careful this time." The villagers exchanged uncertain glances, but the little boy Marigold had rescued stepped forward. "She helped me," he said, "and she gave me the best porridge I've ever eaten. I think we should give her another chance." One by one, the villagers nodded. They were still hesitant, but they were also hungry, and the memory of the sweet porridge was hard to resist. Marigold brought the pot to the square and set it on a table. She whispered the words to make it cook, and soon the air was filled with the delicious smell of porridge. The villagers lined up with their bowls, and Marigold made sure to stop the pot before it could overflow. She watched carefully, her heart pounding, but everything went smoothly. As the villagers ate, their faces softened and they began to smile. They thanked Marigold, and some even apologized for being so harsh. She felt a weight lift from her shoulders, knowing she had finally made amends. From that day on, Marigold used the pot to help the village. She cooked porridge for everyone, but she was always careful to stop the pot in time. The villagers grew to trust her again, and they even began to help her and her mother with chores and repairs. The once lonely cottage at the edge of the forest became a place of warmth and laughter. But Marigold never forgot the old woman's warning. She knew the pot's magic was a gift, but it was also a responsibility, one she would never take lightly again. One evening, as she sat by the fire with her mother, Marigold thought about the old woman. She wondered who she was and where she had come from. Had she known what would happen when she gave Marigold the pot? Had she known Marigold would learn such an important lesson? Marigold smiled to herself. She didn't have the answers, but she was grateful. The pot had brought her sorrow, but it had also brought her joy. And it had taught her the value of kindness, responsibility, and second chances. And so the village thrived, and Marigold's story became a legend, passed down through generations. The tale of the little pot and the girl who learned to use it wisely reminded everyone that even the sweetest gifts must be handled with care, and they all lived happily ever after.